The best financial advice I ever got was from a millionaire who told me, stop obsessing over your first million and focus on your first 10,000 instead. At the time, I didn't understand why. But now I do. Everyone talks about hitting six figures or becoming a millionaire. But here's the truth. $10,000 is where everything actually changes. It's the inflection point that nobody talks about. In this video, I'm breaking down the 7 things that shift once you hit 10K. Some psychological, some mathematical, and some that will completely change how you think about money. By the end, you'll understand why this number matters more than any other milestone. So let's dive in. The first thing that changes when you hit $10,000 is this. You break through a massive mental barrier. And I'm not talking about some feel-good motivational stuff here. This is backed by actual science. Here's what happens. When you look at your bank account and you see $10,000 instead of $9,999, something shifts in your brain. You go from 4 figures to 5 figures. And that difference, it's not just $1. Psychologically, it's everything. There's a study from 1997 by a researcher named Bandura that found something fascinating. People who set specific, smaller goals were way more successful than people who had big, vague goals. And the reason is something called self-efficacy. It's basically your belief in your own ability to accomplish something. When you hit 10K, you've proven to yourself that you can do this. You're not just hoping you can save money anymore. You have evidence. You've got 5 figures sitting in your account as proof. And that proof changes how you see yourself. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. There was another study in 2010 that looked at how people respond to round numbers versus random numbers. And what they found is that round numbers like 10,000 are way more motivating than something like 9,999. Think about it like this. If you're tracking your steps and you hit 9,892 steps, you might call it a day. But if you're at 9,892 and your goal is 10,000, you're going to walk those extra 108 steps no matter what. That round number pulls you forward. The same thing happens with money. $10,000 feels like a real milestone. It feels like you've crossed into a new category. And once you're there, your brain starts believing that bigger numbers are possible too. 25,000, 50,000, 100,000. It all starts feeling achievable because you shattered that first mental barrier. And here's the thing most people don't realize. The average American can't even cover a $1,000 emergency expense. So if you've saved 10K, you're already in rare company. You've done something that most people haven't. And that should give you serious confidence to keep going. Alright, so here's where the math gets exciting. Once you hit $10,000, compound interest actually starts working for you in a meaningful way. Now, you've probably heard that famous Einstein quote, "Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world." And it sounds cool, but what does it actually mean? It means your money starts making money for itself. And the more money you have, the more money it makes. Think of it like a snowball rolling down a hill. At first it's tiny, it's slow. It barely picks up any snow. But as it rolls, it gets bigger. And the bigger it gets, the faster it grows. That's compound interest. Let me show you the actual numbers because this is wild. Let's say you're saving $1,000 per year and you're getting a 10% return in the stock market. That first $10,000, it's going to take you about 8 years to get there. 8 years of grinding, saving, staying disciplined. But here's what nobody tells you. That next 10,000, it only takes about 4.7 years. You didn't change anything. You're still saving the same 1,000 per year. But now your first 10K is working for you, generating returns, making the journey faster. And it keeps accelerating. The third 10,000 takes about 3.5 years. The fourth takes about 2.8 years. Each milestone gets faster because your money is compounding on itself. This is why Warren Buffett is worth over $100 billion today. 99% of his wealth was built after he turned 65. Not because he suddenly got smarter, but because he had decades of compound interest working in his favor. So here's the bottom line. The faster you can get to that first $10,000, the faster everything else comes. That's why I call it speed running to 10K. Don't just casually save over 8 years. Find ways to increase your income, cut expenses, and hit that 10K milestone as fast as possible. Because once you're there, Compound interest takes over and does the heavy lifting for you. Alright, so here's something most people don't understand about investing. The stock market isn't actually risky if you have margin. And $10,000? That's when you finally have enough margin to make investing work. Let me explain what I mean. There are two things that determine whether you make or lose money in the stock market. The first is patience. The second is margin. Patience means you're not panicking when the market drops 20%. You're not day trading. You're not trying to time the market. You're just buying index funds and holding them for decades. That's how you actually build wealth in the stock market. But here's the problem. You can't have patience if you don't have margin. And margin is just a fancy word for buffer. It's the cushion between you and a financial emergency. Think about it like this. Let's say you only have $2,000 total, and you invest $1,000 of it in the stock market. Now let's say your car breaks down, and you need $1,500 to fix it. What are you going to do? You're going to pull that money out of the market. And if the market happens to be down when you need it, you just locked in a loss. That's not investing. That's gambling. Because you didn't have margin. But now let's say you have $10,000 saved. You invest $3,000 in the stock market and keep $7,000 in your emergency fund. Now when your car breaks down, you pay for it with your emergency fund. Your investments stay untouched. They keep growing. You can ride out recessions, market crashes, whatever, because you have margin. This is why the stock market works for people with money, but feels risky for people without it. It's not that the market itself is different. It's that having margin gives you the patience to actually let your investments grow. So once you hit 10K, investing stops being risky and starts being one of the smartest things you can do with your money. Because now you've got the buffer to play the long game. Here's one of the most powerful shifts that happens at $10,000, and most people don't even realize it's happening. Your entire decision-making process changes. Before you hit 10K, almost every financial decision you make starts with the same question. Can I afford this? Can I afford these shoes? Can I afford this trip? Can I afford to go out to dinner? Your life is controlled by what you can and can't afford. But once you have $10,000 saved, something shifts. You stop asking, can I afford this? And you start asking, should I buy this? Do I actually want this? Will this add value to my life? And that might sound like a small difference, but it's absolutely massive. Because now you're making decisions based on value instead of price. You're thinking long-term instead of short-term. You're in control instead of being controlled by your bank account. Let me give you an example. Let's say you need new shoes. Before you hit 10K, you're asking, what's the cheapest pair I can find? You buy the $30 shoes because that's what you can afford. They fall apart in 6 months, so you buy another cheap pair. You're stuck in this cycle. But after you hit 10K, you ask a different question. What shoes will last the longest and give me the best value? Maybe you spend $120 on a quality pair that lasts 3 years. You just saved money in the long run and got a better product. Same thing with bigger decisions. Let's say you want to take a trip. Before 10K, the question is, can I afford to go to Mexico? And if the answer is no, you don't go. Your finances dictate your life. After 10K, the question becomes, will this trip bring me joy and create memories I'll value? If yes, you go. If no, you save the money for something better. You're making the decision. Money isn't making it for you. This is what financial freedom actually looks like at the 10K level. You're not rich, but you're also not being controlled by scarcity anymore. You can optimize for quality, for value, for what actually matters to you. And that's a game changer. Alright, here's a big one. Once you have $10,000 saved, you can cover 99% of life's emergencies. And that gives you something that most people never experience: real financial peace of mind. Think about the surprise expenses that life throws at you. Your car needs a new transmission. That's $3,000. You crack a tooth and need a root canal. That's $2,000. Your dog gets sick and needs surgery. $1,500. Your laptop dies right before a big project. $1,000. None of these are fun, but with 10K in the bank, none of them ruin you either. You handle it, you move on, and you keep building wealth. That's the power of having a financial cushion. Now compare that to where most people are. 59% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency expense. 78% live paycheck to paycheck, so when their car breaks down or they have a medical bill, they're going into debt. They're putting it on a credit card. They're borrowing money from family, and that just keeps them stuck in the cycle. But when you have 10K, you've broken out of that cycle. You're not living in survival mode anymore. You're financially self-insured for almost everything life can throw at you. And here's what's interesting. Most emergencies are under $5,000. You might get one big surprise every few years that costs more than that, but it's rare. So $10,000 is the sweet spot. It's enough to cover basically everything without having so much cash sitting around that you're missing out on investment growth. The bottom line is this. Having 10K eliminates that constant low-level anxiety that comes with being one surprise expense away from financial disaster. You can finally breathe. You can finally stop worrying. And that mental freedom is worth more than the number itself. This one is subtle, but it might be the most powerful thing that changes when you hit $10,000. You gain the power to say no. And I'm not just talking about saying no to bad financial decisions. I'm talking about saying no to anything that doesn't serve you. Bad job offers, extra shifts you don't want to work, opportunities that don't align with your goals, even toxic people or situations that drain your energy. Here's the thing. Having money equals having options. And having options equals having power. The power to make choices without desperation. Before you have 10K saved, most of your decisions are made from a place of need. You need this job even if you hate it. You need to say yes to overtime even if you're exhausted. You need to take whatever opportunity comes your way because you can't afford to turn anything down. That's not freedom. That's survival mode. But once you have $10,000, you've got breathing room. You can turn down a job that doesn't pay enough. You can skip that side gig on Saturday because you'd rather spend time with your family. You can walk away from situations that aren't right for you. And this confidence doesn't just stay in your finances, it bleeds into every other area of your life. You start setting better boundaries. You stop tolerating things you used to accept. You make decisions based on what you want, not what you're afraid of losing. Look, I'm not saying 10K makes you rich enough to quit your job and do whatever you want. That's not the point. The point is that you're no longer making decisions from a place of fear. You're making them from a place of choice. And that shift in psychology is massive. Because here's what most people don't realize. Freedom isn't about having unlimited money. Freedom is about having enough money that you can say no to the things that don't serve you, and yes to the things that do. And $10,000? That's when you finally have that freedom. Alright, here's the final thing that changes when you hit $10,000, and honestly, this might be the most important one. You've proven to yourself that you have the discipline to build wealth, and that proof changes everything. Let me put this in perspective. 44% of Americans can't afford an $1,100 emergency expense. The personal savings rate in America is only 4.6%. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck with zero savings. So if you've saved 10K, you're not just ahead financially. You've demonstrated something rare. You've built real financial discipline. You've delayed gratification. You've said no to things you wanted in the short term, so you could say yes to something bigger in the long term. And here's why that matters. The habits that got you to $10,000 are the exact same habits that will get you to $100,000, and then to $1 million. The only difference is time and consistency. There's this concept from the book, The Power of Habit, that breaks down how habits actually work. Every habit has 3 parts. There's a cue, which triggers the behavior. There's a routine, which is the behavior itself. And there's a reward, which reinforces the behavior and makes it automatic. For most people, the cue is wanting a comfortable life. That's universal, but the routine is where things split. Some people get comfort through short-term spending. Buy something now, feel good for a moment, repeat. Other people get comfort through long-term investing. Save and invest now, build financial security, feel good knowing your future is solid. Both groups want the same reward, a comfortable life. But only one group is actually going to get there. And if you've saved 10K, you've already proven you're in the right group. You've chosen delayed gratification over instant gratification. That's huge, because delayed gratification is the secret to building wealth. It's saying no to the small cupcake now, so you can have the massive cake later. And if you've done that once, You can do it again and again. Here's the bottom line. The hardest part of the entire wealth building journey is starting. It's building those initial habits. It's proving to yourself that you can actually do this. And if you've hit $10,000, you've already done the hardest part. Now all you need to do is keep going. Refine your routine. Stay consistent. Focus on the long term. Because if you can get to 10K, you can get to 100K. And if you can get to 100K, you can get to a million. The discipline is already there. Now you just let it compound. So here's the bottom line. $10,000 isn't just a number. It's the milestone that changes everything. It shatters your mental barrier, gets compound interest working for you, makes investing less risky, shifts your decision-making, covers your emergencies, gives you the power to say no, and proves you have the discipline to build real wealth. If you haven't hit 10K yet, make it your mission. Stop chasing the million. Focus on this first, because once you get here, everything else becomes easier. And if you've already hit 10K, drop a comment and let me know what changed for you. I'll see you in the next one.